Good evening. I'll be the moderator for tonight's SFPOA presidential debate. The candidates are the incumbent, Tony Montoya, and candidate Rich Chabadi. The candidates have agreed to be referred to as Tony and Rich. I have reviewed the submitted questions, and I have selected 7 questions that are balanced on issues affecting contract negotiations, wages, hours, and working conditions. All right, so we obviously received a lot of good questions. With only being able to ask 7 questions tonight, chose questions that were most representative. I know a lot of you have questions, and I encourage you, if you don't get your questions answered here tonight, that you approach either candidate before you cast your vote. Make sure you get a chance to ask your questions. All right, the following is a reminder of the rules affecting audience conduct. Only active members may attend the debate. The media, press, non-designated civilians, command staff members, and retired members are expressly excluded from attendance. There shall be no audience participation. There shall be no applause, speaking, video recording, audio recording, or participation in the debate by any means other than silent observation. The candidates will be read 7 questions. The questions will be given 2 minutes each, or the candidates will be given 2 minutes each to answer the question and 2 minutes each for rebuttals. After the 7 questions, the candidates will be given a 2-minute closing statement. We will start the debate by flipping the coin to determine who answers first during the first question, and then we'll alternate who answers first after that. So Tony is heads, and Rich is tails. So we'll flip. All right, it is tails. Somebody want to verify? Based on the emails I got, yes, if somebody wants to verify. All right. So I'm going to start, once I complete the question, I'll start the clock. I've told the candidates that I'll raise my hand to indicate that there's 1 minute remaining. And then for the last 5 seconds, I'll hold my hand up and then count down to 0 for that. With that, candidates, just to double check, can you both hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yep. All right, sorry, so let me get my clock set here. All right, so okay, the first question, what is your plan to bridge the gap between junior and senior members to have a more cohesive POA? And time starts now.
Okay, right now we're pretty divided. I think a lot of the senior guys are getting longevity pay. That's a big problem because it's good for all of us who have more than 10 years. But for the younger guys, it's an issue. You know, we've gone from 5 steps up to 7, and from 7 to 10, you have this gap where now there's no pay, and you have to wait in order to get to 10 years to get your longevity. So for the younger guys, you know, it's starting to become easier to start looking at other places because now, instead of 5 years to get your top step, it's going to take 7, then you'll have your break, and then at 10, you'll finally get more money. Whereas you can go somewhere else, probably get treated better, not have the DPA breathing down your neck, maybe even a little closer to home, and possibly paid better. So I think one thing we need to try to do is get back down from 7 steps to 5. I know I've been talking about it for a while. 5 steps is just too long to get to the top step. It's denying reality that right now in our department, people with 10 years are about 70% of the department. You know, so if we keep going with this rate, with this large group of people at the bottom that we can't retain, it's going to cause a lot of problems for the people toward the end and in the middle. So going from 7 down to 5 would be a big one. Our contract has also, over the past few years, put us up from 55 to retire to 58. That's a problem for some people. Other agencies are also offering, signing bonuses and pulling people away. So I think that's going to be a big problem in the future. So a new contract or a reopener that's worth it to help out the younger members, that would be helpful. And right now I think that's something that we need to do to help bridge the gap. Otherwise we're going to continue having this problem both with recruitment and retention.
Okay. And Tony?
So I do agree. I have heard out there the campaign that the younger members feel like there's no equity between the more senior. You guys all know that I've been involved in the contract negotiations the last 18 years. And when you negotiate contracts, it's always about getting the most for the most. We're going to have two choices moving forward. We're going to either open the contract or we're going to go to full contract negotiations. Unlike the department, I'm offering solutions to the mayor's office right now as we speak on how we could open the contract and provide more of a level playing field so the younger members feel like they're getting their piece of the pie a little bit sooner. As Rich pointed out, yes, during the recession, during a different president, we went from 5 pay steps to 7. We reduced the starting salary. I've already been in preliminary talks with the mayor's office and they are interested in opening up the contract. So for starters, we need to increase that starting salary 10% that we reduced it back in 2008. I agree we need to go back to 5 pay steps instead of 7. We also need to look at some other bonuses along the way. That lateral hiring bonus is not working out so well, so I want to offer to the mayor, how about we have a retention bonus? We are losing those 1 to 5 year members in record numbers, so how about we offer those cops that get 5 years in, how about they get a $10,000 retention bonus because the lateral hiring bonus is not working. As far as getting the membership together, I do believe we can do a better job of communicating. I'm still learning my way around the technology. It's all about holding more events and getting this back to more of a social organization than just coming to work and going home and not really knowing our partners. So there's a lot of things we can do. I'm all about moving the association forward, but I think right now we need to hit the contract head on and look how we can bridge that gap so the younger members feel like they're getting more up front. So like I said, it's reducing the pay steps, increasing the starting salary, look at some other type bonuses, and like I said, I'm offering solutions to the mayor's office because the department has yet to do that. Finished.
Okay. Rich?
I think being more social with each other is a big step going forward. Part of our plan that we toured on was talking about membership involvement and getting everybody involved. If we're going to start working together outside of work, or in work, we need to also start working together outside of work. The only way we're going to get this thing forward and start making some real change that's going to make a better POA is if we start working together outside. Because our big strength is in our numbers. We have 2,000 people. That's a lot of people we can use, and we can push around and try to get some change that we need. With that, we threw a dodgeball tournament. We had a pretty good turnout. Everybody showed up. We had fun. I think that's kind of the step of things that I want to start doing, social events that we can start doing together. I think doing things like that would help get us in these relationships so that we're not just handling calls 10 hours a day, but we see each other outside of work. So I think that's important. Another thing that could be on the table would be student debt relief. People coming out of college with a lot of student debt. That's something that's never really been done here, but right now we get $500 a fiscal year for tuition reimbursement. When I was in law school, I paid for about 1 book, so that was helpful to a point. But I think student debt relief is something we should look into. I also think with the contract reopener, it would be a great idea, but right now the city's already projecting a $420 million budget shortfall, and the mayor's asked for 3.5% cuts. So I hope it can happen, but if we're already in trouble of deferring or delaying our 2% and our 1% that we're already due, getting a reopener to get us more money seems to be an issue.
And Tony?
I thought it was it.
I misunderstood it was a rebuttal for each.
So we're going to have a rebuttal to the rebuttal then? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I apologize. I was told it was question, response, and then, okay. So, we did, Rich talked about there is a $425 million projected budget deficit. Something we all need to remind, that's for 2 years. So, as Rich pointed out, there's a little caveat in our contract. It's in every MOU for every labor group that if the city realizes a $200 million deficit, the raise due July 1 will be due January 1, and the raise due January 1 will be due June 30th. I did read that number in the Chronicle. Once again, we know the media likes to sensationalize everything. So I did some snooping around. I called City Hall. I called people at the controller's office. They said, Tony, you've been around long enough. That's just rhetoric. The sky's falling. The sky's falling. They told me in their heart of hearts that they do not believe that that deficit's going to come to fruition July 1. So I'm standing here tonight telling you that I'm very confident that all raises that are scheduled in the contract are going to come due July 1. So we'll get our 2%, the longevities will kick in, and then we'll have the additional 1% in January. As I told you, I've been in direct conversation with the mayor's office. They are interested in opening up the contract. If we do, it'll be on a very, very limited basis. Everyone in this room will get to vote on that contract. Whether we open it or not, it has to make sense. And like I said, immediately we need to reduce the pay steps. We need to increase the starting salary. We need to look at tweaking that longevity pay a little bit. We need to look at some alternative bonuses. We need to look at some things that'll be kind of even the playing field so everyone feels like they're getting their piece of the pie. So once again, I'm offering real solutions, and because of my relationship with the mayor's office, they do want to sit down and talk about that. So that's what I envision moving forward immediately, because we have two choices. Either open it or negotiate. Whatever we decide, the mayor needs to decide very quickly which way we're going to go so we can focus our energies on those two issues.
All right. All right, next question. As the runoff indicates, since the last election, this recent election was so close between the two of you, only 15 votes separated, which of course led to the runoff. How will you address reaching out and addressing the concerns of members who did not vote for you?
You're right, it was a very close election. 15 votes difference, that's razor thin. It's not a landslide by any means. Something I even talked about before the election is, we've struggled for years, we need to do a better job communicating with the members. Our emails are antiquated. My email lady said that about 30% of the emails get opened up. This last year, we tried to hold more social events because we actually got together a younger committee and said, what do you guys want to see for the organization? How can we go back to the days where we're socializing? So, we had those different events. We had our first one at the Dubliner. We had another one at the Valley Tavern. We had that one down at the Brixton. So I want to do more of those going forward. So Rich said, so we can socialize outside of work again. So one thing I also told the executive moving forward is it's easy for us to say, come down to us, come down to the POA, email us. We do need to do a better job of getting out to the stations. So moving forward, I've divided the membership up amongst the 5 executive boards. So an example, I would take investigations, maybe tactical unit, and traffic. Another executive board would take A, B, and C. And what we're required to do every month is go out to one of the 3 stations we're assigned to. That way we're getting out to the stations at least 4 times a year. We can all get out at least once a month. And I think face-to-face and based on the feedback I've got, that's going to be our best form of communication with the members other than our social media platforms, the emails, and our website. Done.
I agree, our email sucks. All week, I've had people asking me, hey, how'd the election go? Who won? If we can't communicate with each other internally, there's no way we can get a solid message out externally and try to get some change that we need. So, one, we need to start getting those emails updated. I know a lot of people have never changed their email on the POA website, so I think that's part of the issue why people don't receive emails. So that needs to change. Our social media presence, it's okay. Facebook, we have about 9,000 followers. The SFPD itself has 56,000. 9,000 of the population of 888,000, it's about 1%. So our message reaches about 1% of everybody. Don't really have an Instagram presence. We have 1,200 Twitter followers. Those all have to change if we're going to start getting some people to start listening to our message. I think all of those together, if we can start working together on it, would be helpful. I had the idea, I think, 1 day a week out of the office. We can do pretty much anything electronically, remotely now. I don't have to be, if I get in, I don't have to be at the POA building every day, all day. I think that's important to be there. I think it's important to show up when members want you. But I think to be amongst the members 1 day a week, pick a different station, going around once a week, I think is important. So I think a calendar being put up, showing what I'm doing, where I'm going. So then you guys always know. You guys have an idea where I'm at, what I'm doing. It's not going to be an idea of what are they doing or what's happening up there. You'll have a very clear idea. And I think that's going to be very important.
So I did mention communication is a big issue, and we can definitely do a better job at it. I agree with what Rich is saying that, email is an antiquated way to communicate. Twitter, Facebook is probably more for my parents' generation of folks. I hear a lot about Instagram right now. I don't know much about it, but we need to redevelop our ways, whether it's our website, whether it's our forms of social media. It's all about improving. Like I said, I got a lot of good ideas as I made myself around the stations. Some other alternatives, I did increase the general membership meetings to 2 a year from once a year. Maybe we should look at doing 3 of those as well. I think we should start holding some of our POA meetings at night, because if you work midnights, a 12 o'clock board meeting is not conducive for you to come out and listen to the information and get it firsthand. So we can maybe move some meetings out to the district stations. Maybe we can move a meeting up here to the police academy. We just need to get creative. But like I said, what's more important is I heard from a lot of members about ways we can improve, and I want to implement some of that. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with membership communication, and there's no better way to communicate the members than face-to-face. I'm done.
Yeah, I think Instagram's important. Right now, right after this election started, we were going to do a runoff. Somebody came up to me and was like, "Hey, you don't have an Instagram presence for the campaign." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, I have one myself, and I think I have like 20 photos on it. I don't use it very often. But they were like, "You should do it because you can impact and get your message out to everybody all at once." So I said, "Fine, let's run with it." So he and I started it, we created it, and made it into a private account. So if you guys want to get added, you can. So far up to about 275 followers in a week. So instead of me sending out a message to every single person every day, I can hit, blast everybody all at once, get 275 people, it keeps growing. So I think that's the way we need to start doing things. I know for the younger people, the younger, new cops coming in, Instagram thing's kind of a very normal thing. So I think it needs to be normal for us too, because obviously it has bigger impact than the emails do, and we can reach people instantaneously. So that's something I think we need to do. Also using our members' diverse talents. Since touring, I've talked to a lot of different people and found out that a lot of people have different experiences doing other things, whether it's social media marketing, or all the way down to contract stuff, to lawyering things, connections down to City Hall. We need to know all those things, because this isn't a one-person show, this isn't a 5-person e-board show, this is a union. All of us need to work together, and we need to all use our talents to help each other out. So I would hope that some people would want to come forward and help out with that, because I think if we all help each other out and we all use the talents that we already have, that could do very well for the union and get us all more cohesive.
All right, next question. What is your long-term plan for the direction of the POA?
Well, long-term, we need to start changing some hearts and minds. Right now, we kind of play a game of whack-a-mole. That's what we do. Issues pop up, we go and knock the issue down, and then we hope that some change is going to come from that. And then a few weeks later, another issue comes up, we knock it down, we keep doing that. We keep getting the same cycle, this holding pattern, and we're not going to get any change doing that. So the long-term plan that we came up with when we were touring was, step one, we need more membership involvement. We're not going to be able to change anything if it's just 5 e-board members and a few cops that are involved. We need 2,000 members. And I'm not saying we need you guys there all the time to do stuff, but anytime you can, or throw an hour the POA's way, or if you have some specialized skill that you can throw, especially like we just talked about with social media, I think that would be important. So we need to start doing that. That would be the first step, is the more membership involvement. The second one, we need to start infecting some of these networks. Right now, we don't really reach out into the community too far. We do a few events, we throw some money, we're very philanthropic with our money, and that's nice, but we need to start having it as an investment. So the idea we came up with was the small business bump. Small business is getting hosed in this town just like we are. So they're hit with taxes and regulations, and they're struggling too. So I think it's a nice fit for us, and I think if we were to go station to station, vote on, where the members of that station can vote on which small business either needs help in their district or which one is very police friendly. Then we throw an event there, have some good PR. We go wear shirts that show we're the POA. That way, we're not the nameless, faceless people that are in the bad section of the newspaper. Instead, we're just normal people trying to help each other out. I think that'll start changing some minds and start getting into those people's networks. As we start making some change there, then we can start making some bigger change down at City Hall. It also shows the supervisors that, hey, we're in your district and we're getting some fans on our side. So I think that's the change we need to start doing. The only way we're going to change this thing is if we get involved in the community. So that's our plan to do it. Go ahead, Ben. Yeah,
moving forward, first we need to do is address the upcoming contract. We all agree that we need more wages, better equipment, so that's gonna be the first thing. We also need to continue to build upon the relationships and establish ourselves back at City Hall, which I've been able to do in the last 20 months. When I took over as POA president, there were many doors shut and many bridges burnt down because of our tactics from the past. We've had to learn that those don't work anymore. We need to change with the times, and we've done that in the last 20 months. Recently, we had 2 pieces of legislation. You guys probably heard about it, the workers' comp carve-out, which talks about workers' comp issues and cut through the red tape. And then we talked about the HART presumptive legislation. For the senior folks and maybe some of the less senior folks in the room, can someone tell me the last time that the Board of Supervisors voted 11-0 in favor of something the POA put forward? Never. Part of that has come that I've built relationships at City Hall. The first thing I did is I reached out to every elected official, every department head, other unions, and introduced myself. I showed them I can be a reasonable person. I will oppose you when I have to, but my first response is not to insult you, threaten you, grab you by the throat. So it's all about building relationships within the association itself and externally. Like I said, we have great relationships with many other POAs throughout the country. We have pretty good relationships at City Hall. I have decent relationships with most of the command staff, but it's all about coming off as being reasonable, respectfully disagreeing where you disagree, but at least having a better understanding of where our differences are so we can work on those.
So this brings us to a point that keeps coming up, and I want to address it now. Gary Delanis. It keeps coming up everywhere I've gone, everywhere I've talked, it keeps coming up. So let's nip it in the bud now, because I keep doing it, and it keeps coming back, and it keeps showing up in rhetoric, and it keeps showing up on lists other places. I am not Gary Delanis' puppet master. He's not my puppet master, I'm not his puppet. Gary does whatever Gary wants to do. When this first started, Kevin and I, we talked about running. Tony had just fired Gary, so Gary called and wanted to reach out. It was a very personal, vendetta he has against Tony. They don't get along. He wanted to help out any way he could. He gave us a bunch of ideas. We didn't really use any of them because Gary has a style that doesn't work. It's not my style. It's not my character to be that style. Since then, I've been told that, I'm Gary's puppet, and no matter what I do, Gary's stain still stands on me. I don't know. I'll keep addressing it until the day it ends, but that keeps happening. Gary is not around. Gary's not coming back. Gary's going to call and say whatever he wants in the paper because that's what Gary does. I think the POA's problem right now is they don't address anything in the news, and when the paper calls, we get a lot of no comments. Who's always good for a comment? Gary Delanis. So I think he controls the message because he's always willing to pick up the phone and do an answer. I have not sent out any emails on his behalf. He hasn't sent any emails on my behalf that I've approved of, although I hear there's some going out. That it keeps coming up, and I think I can be a very reasonable person too. I think it's in my character, it's how I've been doing things, part of the whole lawyer side of things, but I think we need to nip that in the bud now because it keeps coming up. So I think the contract is a big one, and I think that's something that we're gonna have to work on. I can build the relationship with City Hall too. When we started this thing, Tony and I talked about working together to try to do this no matter how it ended, and I hope we can still work on that together.
So back to Gary Delanis. Anyone that knows Gary, Gary's a very strong presence. Gary was our POA vice president or president for many years, and we owe a lot to Gary, especially when it comes to the form of our wages. Gary did a wonderful job during his time at the POA, but unfortunately, Gary does not know how to take the back seat to anybody. So when I did let Gary go from the POA, I didn't quite actually let him go because, like most conversations, it was very one-sided, Gary yelling at me, and it ended up with him hanging up on me. So I never actually got to officially tell him that I was releasing him from the POA. Gary is Gary, and as far as the press goes, I've never shied away from the press. If I was unavailable, it's because I didn't get the message. I'm out there in the press all the time. We had our press release yesterday, and yes, a lot of times I've had to comment in the press is because Gary still wants to feel relevant in his retirement. I have no control over that. Gary's his own person. What I do know is the ways of Gary Delanis do not work anymore. They worked at a time, but in today's politics, today's City Hall, that's not the style we want to go. We cannot take that chance of going backwards. Gary does not take the back seat to anybody, so if you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile. He's made it very clear through other circles, and Gary doesn't realize that, I know as many people as he does, so stuff does get back to me, and Gary does have plans to come back and be significant in the POA, and we don't need that. We've gained a lot of ground in the last 20 months. We don't want to lose any of that. Gary is persona non grata at City Hall. So when he's sending out emails that the mayor's calling him up and he's got all the board of supervisors on his side, that's just fantasy. That's just Gary being Gary and making a lot of noise because that's how he ran the association, and we need to stay clear of that way.
All right, next question. There were a lot of concerns in recent promotions regarding fairness and transparency in the process. What's your plan to address this?
So the POA has always stood for rank order appointments. And those that have been around, we've seen all kinds of different things, whether it was the rule of the list, whether it was banding, whether it was the rule of 3, the rule of 5, the rule of 10, which we have now. Since day one, we have always stood for rank order appointments. We will never change direction. I was personally passed over for promotions 3 times. I know it sucks, but I've never taken an out of rank order position that's been offered to me. So if you guys realize that within the last 6 months, we filed a grievance. The department had no intentions of promoting those 7 captains that were last on the list. They wanted that list to die so they didn't have to promote anybody. We filed a grievance. We forced the city to take action. They promoted those 7 captains, which led to lieutenants and sergeants being promoted. So other than that, there's only so much we can do for promotions. Unfortunately, they took the testing away from the police department. It is now governed by DHR with civil service rules, and the chief gets to make the final appointment. But, we've taken the chief on. We will continue to take the chief on. And like I said, we will never change from our position of rank order appointments only, because that's the fairest way to go. It was the city's test. You scored well. You should be promoted. No other way around it.
I agree. Rank order needs to be the way to go. The rule of 10, it shows that you can do whatever you want with it. I don't think that's an issue I don't think that's what we need to do. I know the Schiff lawsuit is going on right now, and one thing they're pushing for is a permanent injunction on the rule of 10. I think that's a good idea. Talking to Captain Schiff, he talked about going down to the rule of 3. Every once in a while there might be a reason that somebody needs to be skipped, so I can kind of see that idea if there's a outstanding discipline issue or something. So, but I think one thing that needs to happen, in this area of transparency and everything, they need to justify why they're skipping people. It shouldn't just be that it's a rule of 10, so we get to skip 9 and hit the 10th person. It should be, why did you skip each one of those 9? And you should have to give a reason. And it shouldn't just be because of I felt so or because it was Tuesday. It should be something like this person had more education experience or fit this role better. And just saying that that person was ready to be plugged in, which is one that I heard a lot of people complain about, that's not a reason. So I think those 2 things could be helpful. And I think that going forward, that's how it should be.
So, as the promotions get announced, we get noticed by the Civil Service Commission. So we did argue against the rule of 10. We tried to go back to the rule of 3, but unfortunately the Civil Service Commission did what they did. Other than advocating, they're their own independent agency, so we only have so much sway over them. Like I said, if you stay with rank order promotions, you can't go wrong. I think the chief shot himself in the foot, starting with the November 2017 meeting, when he basically said that race and gender were a factor when making promotions. He then makes stupid comments like cultural competency plays into secondary criteria. Anyone that's taken a promotional exam knows that secondary criteria is completely subjective. We fought against it. Unfortunately, we lost at the end of the day. So I did read Rick Schiff's lawsuit. Out of all the lawsuits I've read, out of all the lawsuits Rick has filed, this by hands down is the best lawsuit written ever. And anytime you get someone's attention, they're gonna have to pay up. So I believe that no one's gonna get promoted based off of Rick's lawsuit, but they're gonna pay money and maybe that's what it's going to take to make the city wake up and say that we need to look at our promotional process and do a little bit better. The only reason the POA did not get involved in that lawsuit and people argued against it, it's pitting member against member. I cannot advocate for number 5 over number 15 anymore because they're both my members. It will not be fair. The only thing I can advocate for is rank order promotions. And if you go rank order, barring discipline, there's nothing to argue about. So we will always stand for rank order, and that's what we will always advocate for. And we will continue to embarrass the chief and the department and let them know that the process is flawed.
I agree in not pitting against member. However, that's what ends up happening. You know, whoever gets passed over, they get angry, they get upset that they got passed over, and you know, every promotion all of a sudden starts seeming illegitimate, and that's unfortunate. So I think rank order is the way to go. I think making them justify exactly why they're skipping people is necessary, and yeah, I'm interested to see how the Schiff lawsuit turns out. From everything I've heard, it sounds like a very healthy case that's going to work very well for all those involved. So hopefully that stays on track. And I think that'll make some big change that hopefully the city will have to pay and figure out what they're doing wrong.
Next question. What are your top concerns for the next contract and how do you plan to address them?
This for me?
Yep.
No. I mean, top concern right off the bat is base wage increase. We're at $135,000 top step. That's way behind everybody else. Locally in the Bay Area, I think we've all seen the Redwood City flyer at $178,000 for top step with all the incentives. Right now, if we had top step, if we got a 10% raise today, it put us up at about $146,000. We're still $26,000 behind them. And if you're going to also add in the incentives, we're still, you know, even at another 8% in the incentives, it's still going to be below that. So that's a big problem. Base wage increase will be the first step. I think adding a patrol premium, I think, is a solid idea. Patrol is the one whose shoulders liability for most of the department. So I think if you want people on patrol, giving them a premium for being there, that would be a good idea. On top of that, like I talked about, also, you know, student loan relief or student debt relief might be something to consider. We're trying to recruit younger people coming out of college strapped with student debt. I think that's a problem that other places are dealing with that we're not. So it could make our job a little bit more attractive. You know, and then if we continue on the longevity pay, I think that's a way to go too. That helps out. And if we were to get, you know, a large raise right up front, that would be very helpful because right now we can't recruit or retain people. And if we could show right off the top that we just got this big bump, that would, you know, be able to up our numbers and hopefully get some people coming in through the door and not escaping out the back door. So I think those things all going forward would help. And yeah.
So we talked about the contract. So it's really, right now we need to hit the finances. I believe we have the perfect storm right now. The city passed a $12.4 billion budget. There's no question the city has money. We're having a recruitment and retention issue. So if the mayor wants people to stay and they want to come, she has to pay up. You guys all know with our last contract was an arbitrator's ruling. So that's why we ended up with the base wages we did. So if we go and reopen the contract, the first thing I want to talk about to the mayor is increasing the base wages, lowering the pay steps, increasing the starting salary, look at some other premiums. We did bring up a CIT premium in the last contract. It didn't make the cut. An example is San Jose pays 3.75%. CIT is a hot issue right now, so we need to make sure that we're getting our members paid for having that type of training. Some other stuff we talked about, because I said the lateral hiring bonus is not working out so well, why don't we give a bonus to the people that we already have? Our mission statement is that our employees are our biggest asset, yet they don't seem to be taking care of them. So rather than do that lateral hiring bonus, maybe we use that bonus too as a retention bonus for the members that are not getting retention pay yet. I'll offer to the mayor, how about a $10,000 one-time non-pensionable cash bonus for members that hit 5 years, because members are not even staying around that long. So we need to have solutions. We need to do it now. We can't wait 18 months to do this. So I think a contract reopener is the best bet. And like I said, whatever we want to throw out there, you don't know what the answer is going to be unless you ask. So I think we focus on premiums, base pay, maybe move the longevity pays around, And like I said, it's up to the mayor. She'd be shooting herself in the foot not to seriously consider that.
Yeah, I agree. I've talked about lowering for the steps from 7 to 5. I think that's important. I know we're also divided right now because some people get to retire at 58 and some retire at 55. That divides the membership amongst age. You know, a lot of the younger officers have to work 3 extra years. If we can get that down to 55, that'd be great. I know it's kind of a pie in the sky idea, but it would help with retention. I still think the patrol premium is something. A hiring bonus might be an idea for somebody looking to, you know, have friends who you want to bring over, some kind of recruitment bonus. Because recruitment right now, we're having a big problem. So if we could get, you know, us to go be our best marketers and work and get your friends to come in, I think that's a good idea. Also, one that we didn't really talk about that needs to go away, the 1,700-hour rule. It needs to either be defined properly in the contract or it needs to go out altogether. Right now, it's causing a lot of issues. I know they've talked about it a lot. I've talked about it a lot. Until that's rectified in the contract, it's going to create a bunch of problems for other people, especially near the end who are looking to retire. I wouldn't want to bet, you know, my 7% longevity pay on Department Bulletin. I think a contract amendment is needed. So if we do a reopener, I think that's of the utmost importance. And then, you know, another more important thing I think we need to do, every time we seem to get a contract, we get a cheat sheet. So you get the idea of what the contract is by a sheet of paper where it says, on this day you're getting 2%, on that day you're getting 3%, on this day you're getting whatever. I'd like to see the full contract before I vote on it. I don't like the idea of going off a cheat sheet. I'd like to have the full deal in front of me and read it over. I think that's how you catch some of these issues, like maybe the 1,700-hour rule, some issues that we heard over at Traffic Company the other day. All that kind of stuff would be caught if the members had the contract in their hand prior to voting. So I think that's important too.
So I'd like to reemphasize, this last contract was an arbitrator's ruling. We've had binding arbitration since 1992. We've never gone to arbitration over a contract. That's why none of us voted on it. So to show Rich's inexperience, every contract that's gone to the membership for a vote, you did vote on it. We mail out the exact language. The cheat sheets are just after the fact, and it's basically, these are the most top 10 questions. Members can go boom, 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 boom. So every member gets the contract mailed to their residence. Every member gets a copy of the full contract before we vote on it. So to say that we don't let you guys see it, that's nonsense. Why would you vote on something that you don't get to see? The 3 at 58, I would love to make that go away, but everyone in this room should know that we do not negotiate the retirement benefits when it comes to that. We are a charter city. The retirement calculations are in the charter. The only people that can change that, the only people that vote on that are the voters. It's happened twice since my 26 years. We went from 75% to 90%, and that's how we ended up with the 3 of 58. The 3 of 58 was to make sure that the retirement system remains healthy. We all want a retirement when we retire, right? You want them to be there 30, 40 years after you retire. So that was a solution to head off the draconian legislation that Jeff Adachi was trying to put forward. Yes, it did affect members that weren't here yet. I'd love to go back at 3 of 50, 3 of 55. The reality is that's not going to happen. It would have to go to the voters. So that's how we ended up at 3 of 58. It was not selling out anybody. It was not trying to take care of the old folks. That was the will of the voters, and that's how we got that. So the 1,700-hour rule, yes, that's been in our contract since 2007. And if anyone's negotiated a contract, kind of one of the rules is language of the day tends to rule. So stuff gets rolled over from this contract to this contract to this contract. That's exactly what happened. Because it affected some of the newer longevity pays, we were able to address it with a department bulletin with the chief.
That's it. It's time for that. Okay. Next question. Next question. Do you have plans to address the MOU between the DA's office and the chief's office and how officer-involved shootings and in-custody deaths are handled and investigated to ensure a fair process? And this one is for Tony.
Yes, so I'm sure most of you have read this horrible MOU between the SFPD and the DA's office. That was about a 3-year-long process that we went back and forth with the city on. We brought in different people from homicide, CSI, across the department to bring in the most experience. You know, the first red flag for me was the 2 guys from LA were in the back room shaking hands trying to cut a deal. So that was the first red flag. So we fought this the best we could. But at the end of the day, it was an agreement between Bill Scott and George Gascon at the time. There was limited ability for us to sit there going and change it. So, as you know, there's a caveat on the contract, or the MOU, that says anybody can pull out of the contract at any given time. We warned the chief when Bodine became DA this is going to be very dangerous. Unfortunately, the chief made it very clear at the November generalship meeting that he was not going to pull out of the contract. So yesterday, I'm sure you guys saw our little media blitz where we went on the offense with Bodine, and I probably got about 40 emails from angry citizens having no clue what the DA's office is up to. So we're going to keep the pressure on him. I'm going to be talking to the mayor again very shortly over this. If the chief will not pull out, the mayor needs to tell him to pull out. So it goes back to our relationships that we've built with the mayor. So we will continue to address these issues as they come up. But the one thing we will not do is we will go out there and provide representation to the members as these things come up. I've said it at AO, I've said it at every station I've visited. Sergeants and lieutenants, make sure you know that thing very well. We need to be taking care of the cops who work for us. And the officers, you should also read that MOU as well yourself. Be your best advocate, be informed. So if a question comes up, you can say, hold on a second, I think this. We get phone calls every night. I got a phone call 2 days ago about an incident at a Tenderloin station that I was able to resolve over the phone because the lieutenant and sergeant were unclear how to proceed.
Well, when it comes to the DA MOU, I told the chief at the November meeting that there was issues with it. One issue was down at Central when we had an incident. And during that incident, the officers took a few hours until all of a sudden they found out that the guy had a bone fracture. So for a few hours, the officers were making statements, writing reports, writing bulletins, or that was something that could happen. All that could be incriminating if it came back up. So that seemed like a major issue. Luckily, the bosses there handled it appropriately. But without the department giving us any rules or process to deal with it, that's going to be a problem. I know the chief at the meeting said the department's working on a bulletin. Well, you know, that was November. We're now almost in February. So I think that's a big problem. If we don't have bosses that are ready to say that we need to stop and basically treat it like an OIS and stop right there and you know, not allow the officers to make statements, we're going to have officers that are going to make these statements and it could be incriminating. So that's something that I brought up to the chief. You know, we'll still see if it happens. He hasn't said anything about it yet. I brought it up to him the last time I saw him too and didn't say anything. So that's a problem. Yesterday at the presser, you know, we talked about a few things. One thing that came up was Chesa talked in his thing and said that, you know, it's basically a conflict of interest. That's why his office can't handle it. I think that's a solid reason right there that we should pull out. We should give him to pull out. Hey, if you can't handle it and you say you can't handle it, you're not living up to your end of the MOU. That's something we could have pushed on. We chose not to. The Bodine Blunders website, I've talked about having prosecutorial accountability for a while. I think that's something we should do. However, I think calling it a blunder is poor choice in marketing. Chesa is not stupid. He's not blundering. This isn't a Benny Hill music video where he's tripping over a chair. That's not what he is. He's smart, he's calculating, and he's trying to go after us. That's something that we need to address and take it with the seriousness that it is. I know yesterday they asked about, the one question that came up at the end was, what federal crime did this guy commit, and why are we going with the feds with this? And there was no answer. That's something that should be prepared for if we're going to go that route.
Yeah, so like I said, everything we predicted about Chesa Bodine has come to fruition. We did this during our anti-Chesa Bodine candidacy when we tried to prevent him from becoming the DA. So now we've gone on the offense based on his recent charging or lack of charging decisions over 2 incidents that occurred. One over the weekend and one was from the Mission OIS. Like we said all along, Chesa Bodine has a suspect first, victim afterthought type policy. I made the comment, you know, he needs to learn to walk and chew gum at the same time. Since the dawn of time, there's always been concurrent investigations after an OIS. So for him to say that to avoid conflict, he needs to dismiss charges against the suspect who created the circumstances of the OIS and simply focus on the police officers is completely wrong, and that's what we did to expose it, like I said. Based on our education-based campaign, we're already getting the citizens calling us and saying, hey, I didn't know about this. How soon can we do a recall? How can we get involved? The incident from the Ingleside the other day, as soon as I was notified, boom, we started getting the ball in motion. I sent Tracy to one location. I sent Sean to the other. I'm on the phone with the attorneys. I called the lieutenant at Ingleside and said, stop everything right now. Tell your members not to write a report. Tell nobody to write a statement because they have rights. They have their constitutional rights through the Constitution, and they have their pro bar rights. And if you're calling this an in custody death and you're saying there's possible criminal culpability, they're not going to write a report. They're not going to write a restatement. They're going to speak to their attorneys. We're not going to give a compelled statement. We're not going to give a statement to IIB or the DA's office at this time. So if you want to compel them to make a statement later down the road for IA admin, you can do that. But that's how we need to treat these things, just like an OIS. You're not going to give a statement other than what you're required to do. We even talked about creating like a public safety type situation where we should have like a little card. But like Rich said, the department's not putting anything out yet.
Time.
Yeah, our experience with chess has been a problem. Back in July when we had our meeting with Legislative Affairs Committee, we looked at endorsing people. We decided on Leaf Dodge, and we also decided on spending at the time it was called a $60,000 independent expenditure. That was going to be used to put money against Chessa and put messages out there without our name on it. So we voted on that. It went up to the board of directors. They agreed, and it moved on. From the time from July to November, no message seemed to happen. You know, I said at that meeting that Chessa was going to be a problem because I lived here my whole life, and you know, he seemed like the perfect candidate San Francisco would want to put into office. So from that time, from July to November, nothing really happened. Then we dropped a big ad buy, $400,000 worth of our own money, $250 of others, and put our name all over it. And we, you know, gave a lot of name recognition to Chessa. You know, if you're going to smear somebody, the proper way to smear them, you smear them and you give an alternative candidate. Since we didn't endorse anybody and we didn't give a real alternative, all we did was driving name recognition to Chessa. So, you know, that didn't really work out. I also don't know how the $60,000 became $400,000. I think that's something, if we're going to spend that type of money, it needs to either go to the board of directors and have a vote, or it needs to go maybe to the membership. That's a lot of money from the POA's bank. So, you know, that's something that we need to fix. If we're going to spend that kind of money, it needs to be done right. And as far as yesterday's thing, going back to the federal crime thing, the Back to Blue Act isn't a real law yet. I think it might happen soon. Hopefully it'll happen. But until it is, it's not a federal crime to assault us. So if we're going to go talk about, you know, pushing it up to AG Barr and getting AG Barr to take over, you have to give them a federal crime. That was the first question that was the only question I was asked at the end of the thing. And the answer was taught to the lawyers. That's the kind of thing we don't need. That's something we should have prepared for. If we're going to push to go to AG Barr, we should have a federal crime behind in our back. If we don't have it, then why are we pushing for this whole thing? So if we don't like Chessa and want to move it up to the state AG, that's something, but we can't go move it up to the feds if we don't have a federal crime.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. That was the 7th question. Therefore, we'll flip a coin again here to determine, make sure I have this right. Tony is heads, Rich is tails. Go into the heads. It is, and just to make sure I don't do an NFL thing here. Tony is heads, so we'll go into the 2 minutes each for conclusion statements. All right.
So we have a big decision to make in this runoff election. We could either move the organization forward with change, with experience, or we can go into the unknown. There's a lot of things at the forefront right now. We have contract negotiations coming up. We have heavy discipline being handed down. We have a new DA. We have a department that is not supporting its members. And we need to continue to move forward. Like I said, at the end of the day, you know, experience does matter. You know, there's never a shortage of issues that come up at the POA. So, like I said, I've been on the board for 20 years now. I worked my way up to the position I'm in. I never asked to be the POA president. It just kind of fell in my lap one day, but somebody had to do it, so I took over. So, like I said, there's a lot at stake here. So when you guys do cast your vote, starting tonight at 8 o'clock, I ask that you do take some type of experience into consideration when you cast your next vote, and I would appreciate your support.
Okay, I was happy with the turnout. 1,703 people is great. I think that was a good start, and hopefully we can get more during this runoff. Tony keeps hitting on experience, and that's fine. Some experience I have. I'm an estate planning lawyer, so when it comes to issues of precision and language and contracts, those are things I deal with all the time. So that doesn't really bother me. I'm a defense rep, so I've done that. I have street time. I'm on the Body Worn Camera Legislative Affairs Committee, and I instructed the Academy. So although the experience may not be directly in the POA stuff or under all the POA realm that Tony has, it is experience nonetheless on a different side that Tony doesn't have. When we talk about experience in the POA, Tony says he's been doing contracts since 2002. During that time, we've gone from 55 to 58 as a retirement age, 5 to 7 steps. Now we're trying to go back to 5, 7.5% to 12.5% into retirement on this floating scale for our contributions. And we have the 1,700-hour problem. Another thing, we've blown $400,000 on the Chessa race. That keeps coming up, and now we may have to spend more depending on how his charging decisions go. We've had other issues when it comes to, centrifuger and all that kind of thing. I think that was a little bit of a different style thing. They want to keep hitting with the Gary thing. Here you go again with the Gary. Already addressed this, and I'll address it again. Gary's not coming back. I don't have plans on bringing Gary back, and I don't know how I can make that any more clear than I have to you all already. Gary and I have very different styles. I'm not Gary. If you ask anybody who knows me, if you don't know me, they'll tell you the same thing. So I think we need to stop doing this whack-a-mole leadership. We need to get out of our holding pattern, and we need to start making some real change. The only way we're going to start doing that is if we have a plan going forward. I think our plan works, and I think it's something that over time will make it happen. Heard a lot of ideas about SPing on the Super Bowl. I know a lot of people have been talking about that. That's a terrible idea. I get the idea and why you'd want to do that, but that's what everybody expects from us. So let's do the unexpected. Let's start making some change here. And let's get to work.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance here. Thank you to both of the candidates. Appreciate it, everybody.